بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين نحمده ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وخاتم رسله النبي المؤيد والرسول الأمجد أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. وامن علينا برضاه وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته ودعاءه وخيره. اللهم وفقنا بما تحب وترضى ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. We take the modern life for granted. The way we live today in modern society is very different to how we lived 50 to 100 years ago, or how we lived to what they call the pre-modern era. Now, you probably think this is something obvious. Of course, today's life is embedded with high technology, personal devices, social media that did not exist 50 to 100 years ago. So, of course, life now looks very different. You know, this is not a profound statement you're making. It's not hidden from anyone. But I mean this in a much more deeper sense, in a much more fundamental way. The way we view life, our philosophy of life has changed. What we think is fulfilling, what we think is meaningful, what gives life a value, what gives life purpose, has drastically changed in what we call the modern era. And the lives we live today, the lives we live in particular in this part of the world, is a product of a historical, intellectual, ideological revolution that took place almost 400 to 500 years ago in the Western world, which is called the Renaissance. After the Renaissance revolution, which was in effect a reaction to the monopoly of the church over so many different areas of people's life, we had a shift to an ideology called humanism. Humanism is the idea that the human being, the individual, is the center of all things. We moved from a worldview, a way of life that was God-centric, to a way of life that became human-centric. It became the individual that defined a lot of things, where previously it was either defined by the scripture, defined by culture, defined by country. Now it was defined all by the individual. Truth, even something as sacred as what is true, was now subject to what we think to be true. My truth is different to your truth. His truth is different to her truth. And no truth is better than any other truths. There are a sea of truths because there are a sea of individuals, and each individual has a truth. There is no longer a truth with a capital T. There is no reality with a capital R. Reality is what we perceive it to be. Every individual conceptualizes and makes their own reality. It is not based on objectivism. It is based on subjectivity. Truth becomes contingent on the subject, on the person that perceives it and sees it. Religion is also suffering at the hands of this ideology of humanism. There is no longer a right religion or a wrong religion. Every religion is right. As long as the religion serves you, as long as the religion makes you happy, as long as the religion works in your culture, as long as the religion works within your society, it does not matter if it logically makes sense. It does not matter if it philosophically makes sense. It does not matter if this is the figment of someone's imagination. These are all baseless, because what matters is what you think. what the individual thinks. If the individual says, this is the religion I want to follow, and there is no good proof for it, as long as he believes in that to be the case, that is enough proof. So even religion, something that was sacred and to be followed based on evidence and objectivity, becomes subject to the individual, because the individual has become the center. Come forward, truth itself, reality itself was subject to the individual. Religion becomes a tool for the individual to play with. Morality, something that is shared by all human beings, an idea of what is right and wrong, what is moral and immoral, what is ethical and not, also becomes subject to what you think. Although deep inside our human nature, we know some things are wrong. If I go and murder someone innocent, all of you will blame me, correct? You would say this is an immoral act. Or if I was to steal someone's property, all of you would be the first to tell me that this is not your property, does not belong to you. It is immoral to do that. It is unethical to do that. But modernism, humanism, subjectivism, all these isms, come and tell you that today's morality, that the morality your mind perceives, is only a product of social conditioning. Meaning, if society had developed, had moved, had evolved in a different way, we would have found things to be different. Moral things may have not been moral if we had different societies. And perhaps, the most absurd application of this, the most ridiculous application of this, was what we saw in the recent LGBTQ movement. Something as objective as biology, right, becomes the tool and subject to what a person thinks. Suddenly, sexual orientation and your biology is contingent on what you announce. I am X, right? I identify as X, therefore you are X. Whatever X is, because X keeps increasing. That acronym keeps increasing. The recent LGBT movement is a perfect manifestation of what happened 500 years ago, of what happened centuries ago. It is not something that, yes, this is something we see recently, yeah? But it is a product of humanism. It is a product of making truth contingent on the human being. Yes, it will then reach a point where something like biology, where the organ you have becomes subject to what you think. The idea of gender becomes defined by what culture defines it. The idea of gender becomes something that society defines it. All of these areas of life that you and I take for granted. You and I think that much of what is being thought, practiced, and lived in modern society is normal, is status quo. But it is only in the history of humanity something relatively recent. The area that I wish to focus that has been also struggling at the hands of humanism and modernism is the pursuit of meaning. What it means to have a meaningful life, a purposeful life. Where can I find fulfillment? Where can I find happiness? What does it mean to be content with life? What does it mean to have a happy life? Isn't that the question you and I have been searching for since our teenage years? What makes me happy? Every movie we watch is about how to find happiness, the pursuit of happiness. Every cultural item and content we consume is ultimately pointing and trying to answer this one fundamental question. How do we find happiness? Where does true happiness come from? Lo and behold, that modernity, humanism has an answer for you. Just like truth itself with a capital T no longer exists. Reality with a capital R no longer exists. Religion and God no longer exists. These are all prisoners in the hands of the individual. Happiness is also a prisoner in the hands of the individual. You define your happiness. Look within you. The answer you need is within you, and they will recite you some lines of Rumi. the illness is inside you and the cure is also within you. They may even quote you Buddha to look within, to meditate, to isolate, to go into nature, to become one with the universe, to create your internal energy. Lo and behold, they will even recite you a hadith of Imam Ali, that the greatest universe is inside you, right? But all of this is a scam to hide the truth of the matter. That true fulfillment only comes from the self. True happiness only comes from the individual. Family, community, nature, religion, your career, your children, all of that are accessories to serve you to find happiness within you. Truth was contingent to the individual. Religion was contingent to the individual. Happiness is also found only within you. This is the project of modernity, pointing everything on the inside. You want to be really happy? Go and find out what really makes you a special snowflake. That's the project. Since teenage years, since our childhood, since every movie we have watched, the project and the aim is to find what kind of a special snowflake am I. Isolation and individuality is what gives you all the happiness you need. You separating yourself is where you can find meaning. Even as something as simple as the architecture of our houses. We grew up with this, so this idea is not very foreign to us, or at least on first encounter, we think this is very normal. But if you sit down and ponder about it, you realize that humanism and this isolationism or atomism, everyone becoming little atoms, yes, all separated, all trying to seek happiness within, has even infiltrated the way we raise our kids and even the way they sleep. You and I, we grew up with the very basic idea to have our own rooms. Yeah, it was very normal. If you had a sibling who you shared the room with, you couldn't wait that he grew up or something happened, he could move out so you could have the room to yourself, so you could decorate it how you liked, so you could have your safe space, so you could have your privacy. This safe space has this connotation that as if what is outside the room is not safe. That became the dream. Of course, many of us take this for granted, but that became the norm. That is the norm. You are respected. You are given value for what you do with that little space you were given. If you look to a generation before us, even an activity as passive as sleeping. There's no other activity as passive as sleeping. You're not talking to anyone. You're not at work, you're not studying, you're not reading, yes? Are you doing anything special in sleeping? Most of you aren't. I am not, I'm sure. Even sleeping was done in a community. Usually, if you ask your parents, some of you may be second generation or third generation, so this may not be true, but some of you may have even experienced this. As young siblings, you lived and slept in communal areas, yes? But in these societies, even the architecture of our housing is built in a way to isolate. Of course, I am not against the idea of having some, safe space. Some of us have some crazy families, you want a corner, you want some peace. There's no problem in that. There's no issue in having some privacy. But the idea is that the philosophy is embedded even in the way we design our houses and in the things we aspire as kids. From a young age, we aspire to be separate. We like the idea of moving on from the family as soon as possible. And we justify it with an analogy that, he flew out of the nest. Oh, did he? More like he wants to burn the nest down as soon as he can. The idea of finding fulfillment inside, right, has infested itself in so many different areas of our lives. Even when it comes to our careers, choosing a path that is supposed to be our lifelong pursuit, that is sometimes driven and fueled by hate, and it's normalized. How long have you heard, I did this for the haters, yeah? Think about that. You did this for the haters. The brother lost weight, the sister got in good shape, now his business is doing well. He landed a good job, he's got a position of social status now, so on and so forth. He goes on Instagram, writes a story, this is for the haters. You know what that says? That says, I want to be separated. I am different, because this world is a world of eat or be eaten. And some of us pride us in this gangster mentality. Oh yeah, I'm a wolf. I'm a lion. Otherwise, I'll be hunted. Because we have to be separate. Everyone's an enemy. The world is a jungle. Society is a jungle. This is literally what Locke said. Locke is an important Western philosopher that worked in sociology and philosophy, and his idea was that humans practically live in a jungle. The only reason there is some peace amongst us is that because we have a social contract to remain peaceful for the best of everyone else. You don't kill me, I don't kill you. These are the founding fathers of modernism. These are the founding fathers who established and designed the fabric of the societies we live in. We all, as we grow up, talking about careers once again, we watch movies that encourage us to be heroes. Everyone wants to be a superhero. You have to shine somehow. You have to grow up to be different. You have to grow up to look special. You have to grow up to outshine the others. That's the idea, right? You watch these movies, and as a child, that's what you learn. That if you do not grow up to be something like that, where you are the center of attention, you are at the spotlight, anything else is just an abhorrent failure. You are a failure if you do not achieve that. We all suffer and are taught to have main character syndromes. That's all it is. And if somehow we're not the main character in this world, this special snowflake, then we cannot be happy. You can only be happy if you're a singular atomized unit in a society that hates you, that wants to hunt you. But you have to shine. You have to trample over others to triumph. This is how we find fulfillment. The idea of finding fulfillment and happiness is found within you. But this individual, this self, a further problem that it has been presented by modernity isn't just the idea that, okay, I just have to think about myself and it is me that provides all happiness, not anything outside. Everything else is an accessory or an enemy. But the further problem is that the idols of modernity, right? The idols of modernity, the powers of modernity are not just these 2-3 isms I just said. How many isms have I mentioned by now? Humanism, individualism, atomism. They love their isms, right? Because they like to separate. 2 of their strongest isms that also corrupt a divine and true sense of being happy is materialism and naturalism. That the individual you are trying to serve is only a body. You wish, I wish, we all wish that the conception of the individual they had, this self they talk about, was something that was transcendental, that was metaphysical, that they believed in the soul, they believed in the spirit, they believed that there is more to this dunya, that there is more to this material world, that this human being in front of you is more than just a product of biological evolution and chemical processes, right? You would hope that that was the case, that when they said the individual, this is what they were talking about. But no, their individual is just a body. The mind is just the brain. Spirituality is only feel happy chemicals, my friend. There is nothing to the self beyond what you see. There is nothing to the self beyond biology. So the second problem is not only that they focus us to the individual and force us to find happiness from the individual, they even reduce that individual further to the petty demands and dynamics of naturalism, of this physical world. If they had some conception of the man, of the psyche, of the self, being greater than just the body, the physical body, at least, there was some room to work with them. But we have been, and sorry to use this term on this beautiful member, we have been reduced to nothing but mere animals. We are just very, very advanced animals that have been produced after millions of years by the hands of evolution. That's who we are, according to this idea of modernity. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Shakespeare, who I'm sure you all have very fond memories of from school, is of course a great writer. Just because you couldn't, read his books or we couldn't read his books doesn't mean he was not a great man. He is someone that was early in the days of the Renaissance. Okay? So the Renaissance starts 15th and 16th century. This is around the same time that Shakespeare is writing these plays. Of course, he is at the beginning of this movement, but he's still inheriting some of the remnants of the pre-modern era, something about the human that was still taught by the sacred religions, by the philosophies of the East. And look what he says about the man. If I can find this. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. What a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? This, right, is the work of someone in the Renaissance area. But he is explaining and portraying a man who was understood by the pre-modern era, a divine man, an apprehension of a god. Walks like an angel, not an animal. Even Shakespeare understood this. So, by the work of the Renaissance, this intellectual revolution that happened 400, 500 years ago, everything was reduced to the individual. Yes? We said truth was reduced to the individual. Religion was reduced to the individual. Morality was reduced to the individual. And the most important question of tonight, our idea of happiness was limited to the individual. Happiness could only be found from the inside. But this individual was something no other than just the body. This is what modernity has produced for us. This is the status quo you and I live in. This is what I began with, that we take this for granted because we are so surrounded by it, we do not know the kind of water we are swimming in, the kind of oxygen we are breathing in, this intellectual oxygen. Islam being a complete religion, Islam being a religion that is supposed to be the final religion, that is supposed to be a solution to all of humanity's problems until the end of time, has to have an answer to modernity, even though it was revealed 1400 years ago, even though our holy prophets received the revelation, the Holy Quran, 1400 years ago, 1000 years ago before modernity, but it has to have entailed within it the answer to modernity, the false gods that were created by this way of thinking. And quite contrary to this idea that is taught and propagated by modernity, Islam is a communal religion. Islam is a religion of congregation. Islam is a religion that pays attention to the community And this is why you see, and this is once again something we take for granted, but is one of the genius and novel and underappreciated concepts in our religion, and that's the idea of a ummah. We say ummah, left, right, center, we think it's, this is something that everyone has. But if you pay attention to it, the concept of an ummah, a nation that are surrounded around the central notion of faith, is something very, very rare to be found in today's society. Regardless of your country of birth, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, regardless of anything you do in your life, as long as you align with this faith, you are part of one ummah. Compare that to this atomistic idea of society, yeah? That you are encouraged to even separate yourself from the family, let alone feeling connected to someone who's all the way in the other side of the world, that you've never met, that you do not know his history, that you do not know his life, you do not know his family, but by virtue of him saying the testimonies of faith, you are now connected to him. How completely diametrical to modernity. How completely on the complete polar opposite of what we live today. Once again, you and I, unfortunately, my brothers, think about this just for a moment and really absorb this. You and I have become accustomed to take borders as the norm, as if Lebanon needs a border, as if Iraq needs a border, as if Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan needs a border. We have become used to this idea of borders, but an ummah is beyond borders. How often do we think like that? Let's be honest with ourselves. How often do we think about a united ummah? How often do we put the idea of an ummah before my racial background, before the fact that I am Afghan, before the fact I am Lebanese? How many a time are we able to put this idea before us? You know a reason why that the Western world and its people, I'm not talking about its governments, a reason why they were very slow to wake up to the Palestinian cause, a reason for that is because of everything we spoke about. Yes, some of us don't value us as human beings, right? They openly say we are subhuman. Muslim life does not matter to them. Arab life does not matter to them. The Zionist only appreciates the Zionist. The white supremacist does not see you of value and as someone who's equal to him. Of course, when something happens on the other side of the world, it does not matter because it's not white life, it's not Zionist life, yes? But it's something beyond that as well. When you are raised from a young age to think in this individualistic way, to separate yourself, that even your family could be a nuisance to you, even your family could be a disturbance to you, what makes you think that an individual who's been raised and bred and developed in this society, right, is going to worry about the life of someone he has never met on the other side of the world? He cannot. He is the product of this upbringing. For over 20 years of childhood, being a teenager, being an adult, all he has been taught and all he has practiced is to think about himself. You think he's going to go out of his way to speak about for Palestine or some Lebanese? What's Lebanese to him? What's Afghan life to him? What's Iranian life to him? Of course, the human fitrah, the innate human nature that seeks justice, that seeks equality, that seeks that no human being goes through suffering is eventually awakened. Despite all these veils that are named isms after isms, eventually they awaken. They realize that this suffering should not take place. Even the most corrupt of them eventually awaken. But the real reason why they are slow to awaken is because they have been conditioned to think as atoms, not a node in a network, not as a part of a community, not as a part of a ummah. And you and I could fall into the same trap because we live here. If we are not conscious, we become like this. We become like them. the life of our Palestinian brothers and sisters, the life of our Lebanese brothers and sisters, the life of our Yemeni, proud and honorable Yemeni brothers and sisters, Iranians, Afghans, what have you. Look, ya akhi, like it doesn't really affect the local perimeter of my life. Why should I put so much effort into it? That is modernity in action, and you and I are not even conscious of it. Islam introduced the ummah to eradicate colonial borders. You see, this idea of colonialism is an exact replica of what they did to our hearts. You've heard of divide and conquer before, yeah? Divide the lands, divide the people, and then conquer them. Draw borders, draw imaginary borders around the great civilization that never had one. Can you believe that? Draw imaginary borders, for God's sake. This is something we just accepted. Around a civilization that was only connected by faith over vast portions of land, and then conquer them. This is an exact replica to what they have done to our hearts. Separate them. Isolate them. You're a special individual. You're a special snowflake. Care about yourself. Don't worry about the brother. He's an enemy to you. Do it for the haters. Yeah? These are all the same idea applied at different levels. They isolate our hearts and then conquer them. They isolate our lands, our people, and then they conquer them. Islam came, right, to eradicate that idea, to introduce the ummah, to tell you that fulfillment comes, yes, we are not saying fulfillment does not come from the inside. There is a portion of happiness that is fulfilled from the inside and the inside only. But a big part of happiness, a big part of fulfillment in this dunya, a big portion of feeling meaningful in this world and in this life is to look at the outside, is to do for the family, is to do for the group, is to do for the country, is to do for God. You see, even the pre-modern era, I'm not necessarily talking about Muslims. The pre-modern era, the individual was not everything. There were certain things that were above the individual. Country was sometimes above the individual. They gave their life in honor of their countries. The tribe sometimes was above the individual. The family was always above the individual. God was always above the individual. But modernity flipped that. All of these things became servants of the individual, servants of the self. Islam introduced the idea of an ummah. Yes? Inna ummatukum ummatun wahida. Surely your group, your community, your nation is just one, surrounding the pivot of God, a divine pivot, a divine goal. And what better goal to have? Tell me, in your understanding, I don't care however many years of life you have lived, is there a greater pursuit than God? If you look at God as the manifestation of all perfection, maximum knowledge, maximum power, maximum mercy, maximum consciousness, everything you can think of you find in God. Is it really a far ideal and absurd idea to put God at the center of our communities? To put God at the center of our ideals, that a community of people are surrounded by the notion of God? Is God-centricism really that bad when we have this idea of God, when we have this understanding of God? Of course, they corrupted the idea of what a God is supposed to be, and they separated the people. In Islam, happiness comes from the inside, but a big portion of happiness comes from the outside. Comes from the family, comes from the relationships, comes from the community, comes from our relationship with God. The pursuit, dedicating your life, pay attention here, dedicating your life to a greater, higher pursuit is so foreign to the Western man that you do not understand. When they hear that someone is able to give their life for a greater cause, they throw an error in their minds. Like, how's that possible? What do you mean? Why is he giving up his life? Why is he dedicating his life to this cause? His mind cannot comprehend because he's raised on a religion, on an ideology that is surrounding the individual and anything that serves the individual. And we said the individual for them is nothing but an advanced machine, an advanced biological animal. That's all. But when God talks about the ummah and He says your ummah is one, you have a completely different conception. And you and I, living in these communities, living in these societies, let's be honest to ourselves. How much of our happiness and how much of our alignment in our lives is positioned in a way to find happiness from community? Let's be honest with ourselves. How many of us see community as a burden? That if this brother is involved in a community, he's taken on a burden. Yeah? You see that? No, brother, I cannot take on this responsibility. If someone is active, helping in the community in one way or another, we view that as a burden, not as a way to find fulfillment. Because fulfillment and happiness comes from lying down in front of the beach on a Sunday, on having a jet ski, on having the latest car. That's modernity for you, my brothers and sisters. Sorry, I cannot sugarcoat that. That's how we think. How often do we find happiness in the company of brothers? How often do we come on a regular basis and work together to keep it regular, not be distracted by the business of life, not be distracted by the demands of life, not be distracted by the expectations that we have of this life here, but really, truly connect as brothers, as mirrors. That I feel that brother that's attending in this session right here is truly my brother. You know how freeing that feeling is? If for modernity, every other person is your enemy, you hunt them or they hunt you, now imagine you calm that on the inside. You say, hey, this is your brother. He will fight for you. He will do anything for you. Look how that calms that inner turmoil of ours. Islam has thought about this. God has thought about this. Too often we think of our religious commitments in community like going to church. Brother, he goes to church on a Sunday, you come to the mosque on a Friday. What's the difference? What is the difference? How much brotherhood has been built amongst us? How much sisterhood has been built amongst us? That's the true mark of being part of an ummah. If you and I cannot connect to our brothers in Sydney, what hope do we have to help our brothers worldwide? What hope do we have to fulfill an obligation, to fulfill a role in the coming of the Imam? You think it's easy to be part of a movement that thinks beyond themselves? If we cannot practice that now in our little local communities, what chance do we have to practice that with the Imam? Inna ummatakum ummatun wahida. One of the greatest ideas that was introduced by Islam is the idea of a nation, because it surpasses borders, it surpasses races, it surpasses everything. It connects us. But here's a question to all of you, and as a challenge to all of you, and here's a challenge to the Quran. Let me even word it that way, yeah? If truly being God-centric is so fulfilling, being God-centric makes us happy, can you explain to me why all these God-centric societies throughout history have fought one another? Even within Islam, how many sectarian wars do we have? If it is Islam and being God-centric that brings us together, that gives us fulfillment and all this fancy stuff you've been saying, yeah? How is it that you kill each other? How is it that the part of the greatest wars we've had in humanity and the civilizations has been between two religious groups? They are two groups surrounded by the idea of God. How is it they're still fighting? How is it that they're no different to everything that happened in the world wars? That was not driven by religion, but I see no difference. The problem is, an ummah needs an imam. There is no ummah without an imam, without an imam. An ummah, a community without an imam, is like a herd of sheep without a shepherd. Where will they go? They will only be assaulted by the wolves. Look at the Muslim Ummah now. Yes, we're a large collection of people, but where is the Imam? An Imam, the role of an Imam, right? And by an Imam, I mean a divine guide, a prophet that could be, a messenger that could be, a representative of God that speaks for God. Otherwise, every Tom, Dick, and Harry says, yes, our group is God-centric. Everyone will claim to be God-centric. But you need an official spokesperson for God. That's why you need a prophet. That's why you need a messenger. That's why you need an Imam. An Ummah is not an Ummah without an Imam. One of the greatest Imams that humanity has witnessed is the beautiful and unmatched character of Ibrahim, salamullahi alayhi. This great man that stands tall as one of the greatest of history is one of the best Imams we have had. And his story of his leadership and his imamah is in the Quran. He asks God, Allahumma ja'alni lil muttaqina waj'alni lil muttaqina imama. He asks God to be an imam for an ummah, the community of the pious, muttaqeen. Oh Allah, make me an imam, a guide for the pious, for the believers. For him to be able to carry this responsibility, God tests him. وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. And remember when your Lord tested Ibrahim with certain tribulations and difficulties, from being thrown into the fire, from having to slaughter his Ismail after not having a child for a very long time, and then abandoning him and his wife in an area and a land that has no fruits, that has no agriculture, that has no water. Allah tested Ibrahim a thorough testing. Eventually, after being successful through all these tests, فَقَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. You asked to be an imam for an ummah. You went through the tests. You passed all of them. You have the qualifications. This is a big responsibility. Now I make you an imam. But there is another interesting ayah for Ibrahim. Ibrahim is an imam, peace be upon him, no doubt about that. One of the greatest imams we have ever had. But Allah also says, Inna Ibrahim kanat ummatan qanita. How interesting. Wait a minute. The whole story was about Ibrahim being an imam. In this verse, God says Ibrahim truly was a nation. Ibrahim was a nation. So wait, Ibrahim is an imam and an ummah? Yes. And there's a deep lesson in that. To be able to be the imam of an ummah, you need to be the summarized version of that ummah. You need to instill within you every potential that ummah has. If you are going to be their guide to take them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are going to be their imam and leader to take them through the phases of life, to take them through the difficulties, to reach the shores of salvation, to reach God, if you are going to actualize the potential of this ummah that is embedded and instilled within it, you yourself need to have gone through that journey. You need to be a summarized version of that ummah. There should be no one in that ummah or the collective ummah that could be greater than you. You have in you perfected and instilled all the perfections of that ummah. You see what an imam means from the perspective of the Quran? An imam isn't just anybody. An imam is the greatest being that walks this earth and is able to bring an ummah to the level he is at. That's an imam. And that's who Ibrahim was. Tying all of this together, bringing all of what we have said from the start of this lecture. We spoke about the landmark achievement of modernity, which was to say, amongst many other problematic things, that to be happy, right, look within and within only. And isolate yourself, separate yourself. Only care about yourself. Everything else is an enemy. Everything else is an hater. Grow for the sake of yourself. Find anything in life, from family, from religion, from God, from work, from community, that serves your animalistic interests, because after all, you're nothing but an advanced animal. That's modernity for you. Separation, isolation, becoming an atom, and becoming a base animal. That is the landmark achievement of what modernity has taught us. Yes, the status quo you and I live by is this very sentence. But we said Islam had a different solution. Islam said, God said, if you want to be happy, if you want to be truly fulfilled, here is my solution to you. Yes, you will find happiness within, and I have a formula for that. But a great part of the formula for happiness is on the outside, is in the community, is in the ummah. Is thinking about others as brothers and sisters. Is thinking about others as like yourself. Of dedicating yourself to a higher purpose. That will bring you a happiness you have not experienced in anything else. To transcend above yourself. To go beyond what the animalistic self only demands. This is Islam. But we said an ummah needs an imam. An imam is someone who has been through the tests of life, who has seen all the difficulties, and he embodies in him all the potentials of the ummah he is guiding. Putting all of this together, now I want you to think about Arabeen. Now I want you to view Arabeen from this lens. Arabeen is the complete antithesis to modernity. It is Islam's understanding of fulfillment. It's Islam's proposal of fulfillment manifested right in front of your eyes. This ummah meets in a part of the world without race separating them, without country separating them, without gender separating them. Nothing separates this ummah. And they are surrounding the idea of God. All of this is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of this is for the ideals of perfection, of growth, of progress towards God. But guess what? He has an imam. And he has a very beautiful imam. The imam of this ummah in Arabeen, a community that is not seen anywhere, a group of people that do things that bewilder the modern mind, an activity that happens once a year but surprises the mind of those who have lived an entire life of individualism, right? This is Arabeen. This is the power of Arabeen. This community, this ummah of Arabeen is guided by Imam al-Hussein. And tell me, if Hussein ibn Ali had not went through all the tribulations he had to go. Ibrahim went through the tribulations to become an imam. Look at the tribulations Hussein went. Look at all the suffering Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam went through to become an imam for an ummah that is not limited to a certain time and space. He is an imam for infinity. Because his ummah is going to infinity. You and I visit Hussein, but so did our ancestors, so did our forefathers, and so will our offspring, and so will our children. He is not just an imam for a small community. He's an imam for humanity to come. He's an imam for the future. So he instills within him every potential that needs to be actualized. Hussein ibn Ali is not a simple individual. He is the manifestation of every potential that could come for humanity. This is Arba'een. Arba'een is an experience to teach you and I what it means to be fulfilled, what it means to be happy without being isolated, without being individualistic. You think that Iraqi uncle who is serving you, who is taking away from his yearly income, from his food and what have you, who's been saving all year, goes through that difficulty in return for nothing? No, my friend. He feels a joy that you and I have never experienced. For him to serve the visitors of Imam al-Hussein, there is a joy that you and I have not seen in anything else. Yes, these people are also selfish, but selfish in a completely different way. They give of themselves for those outside, for this ummah, and in return, they are blessed. In return, they are rewarded with a fulfillment, with a sense of happiness that you find nowhere. And this is why I said that the brotherhood that is found in Islam, the community that is found in Islam, centered around God and guided by an imam, is found nowhere. The happiness, the content, and the peace you find in that, you will not find anywhere else. This is Arba'een, my brothers. Arba'een is not a festival of food. Arba'een is not a free carnival for you to walk from point X to point Y. Arba'een is not some cultural, emotional protest. No. Arba'een is far greater than all of this. Arba'een is the manifestation of the failure of modernity. Arba'een is scary for them. It shows what Islam can do. It shows what Hussein ibn Ali can do. It shows what the blood of this man has done and will continue to do. And we, more often than not, do not appreciate all the things our religion has to offer. We take it for granted. But my God, we are blessed. My God, we have been given so much. Unfortunately, we could not go this year. But with this idea, I hope that next time you go, with this level of understanding, next time you go to Arba'een, you try to actualize this sentiment within you. Try to see what it means to be part of a community, in this divine community that exists in Arba'een. See what it means to be guided towards an imam, by an imam, to an imam. See what it means to feel connected to God through a group of mu'mineen and through the presence of Hussein ibn Ali. Put that in your mind next time you go to Arba'een. It is truly, truly sad that we missed out. It is truly sad that we missed out. It is the headquarters for the Shia. It is the headquarters for the oppressed. Part of it is visiting this beautiful imam, but a big part of it is meeting up and linking with so many high quality mu'mineen. You will make the best of bonds. You will make the best of friendships, brotherhoods and sisterhoods that will last, that are not limited by the ideals of modernity. This is Arba'een. If you have not went, I really wish that you do go. And when you do go, please keep this in your mind. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We have spoken about Arba'een and Imam al-Hussein and all that led to it from a very intellectual and social sense. Yeah, we have hopefully a more profound understanding of what Arba'een is, of what Imam al-Hussein's role is for the future of humanity, for the future of you and I. But let's spend a few moments talking about the tragedy that surrounds Arba'een, the emotions that surround Arba'een. We talked about an imam that manifests all the greatness that we hope to have. The personalities of Karbala are not people to be found anywhere. The personalities of Karbala and post-Karbala, the women, the children, and everything they went are eternal echoes that will not be found anywhere. Let us remember Hussein ibn Ali in the tragedies and the tests he went through. Let us remember Zainab. If there is a night and there's a day worthy of remembering Zainab, it's perhaps tonight and the day of Arba'een. You and I know Imam al-Hussein a little bit, yeah? We never met him. We never lived with him. We never saw him. If some of us have the opportunity of visiting him in Karbala, then alhamdulillah, we have an understanding of what it means to be in the presence of this man. Yet, we love him. And we love him so much. Can you turn off the echo, please? Zainab, salamullahi alayha, this great lady, and I want you just to contemplate how much love she had. If this is the love we have for Hussein with the little knowledge we have, think of Zainab. She saw Hussein in every day of her childhood. She saw Hussein grow up right in front of her eyes. Every day, every year, this man of perfection is becoming more perfect. Think of all the memories she has with both her brother and her Imam. Do you blame Zainab to be completely not immersed in the love of Hussein ibn Ali? Is it even possible for Zainab to not be completely absorbed by Hussein? If you and I are absorbed by the love of Hussein, we tremble by the hearing of his name, what do you expect of Zainab? A life of knowing this man. All of the memories they have, all of the journey they have passed, comes to an end at a certain point when Hussein has to give his final farewell. When Hussein has to come for the final time and say goodbye to Zainab, has to say goodbye to his family, goodbye to the women. And so Zainab perhaps embraced her brother for one last time. She probably breathed his scent. She probably held him very tight because she does not know what shape and what form she may find Hussein after this. So they farewelled, they embraced one another. And Imam al-Hussein sat on his horse going to the battlefield. Except that it seems like Zainab had not had enough. Zainab wanted more of Hussein. So she says, Mahlan mahla yabna Zahra. Slow, take it easy. O the son of Zahra, do not go so fast. I wonder why Zainab salamullahi alayha is using the name of her mother and the mother of Hussein in this instance. Why is she not just calling him by his name Hussein? Why is she's saying Mahlan mahla yabna Zahra? Oh, the son of Zahra, slowly, do not go. Why is that? I think it has to do with the next part of the story. Because the reason she stops Hussein alayhi salam is to carry the will of her mother. For one last time, she's allowed the opportunity to kiss the blessed throat and chest of Imam al-Hussein. Hussein, do not go, because for the last time, I want to kiss you. I want to kiss the throat that no longer will be in the shape it is now. So Hussein goes, and this is Zainab's final farewell. But there's another time that Hussein is seen by Zainab. There is another time where Zainab comes to find Hussein. But this time not standing and sitting on a horse. This time not fighting against the enemy. This time not hugging and embracing Zainab. This time not talking. This time not calming and ensuring Zainab that it'll be okay. But rather this time he is on the floor. He has no head to speak with. He has no lips to utter sentences with. He has no limbs to embrace Zainab. He cannot even get up. Hussein is not the same Hussein when he left Zainab. Hussein does not look what he looked like when he left Zainab. So this is Zainab finding her brother once again, but she is confused. She is confused. Anta akhi? Are you truly my brother? Are you truly the Hussein I knew? Are you truly the Hussein that grew up with me? Are you truly the Hussein that I embraced moments ago? Zainab, salamullahi alayha, peace be upon her, visited Imam al-Hussein in this way. Many of us wish to have been part of this journey this year. Here we commemorate, and I speak for myself, sit down here and commemorating the Arba'een, the 40th of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. But many of us are heartbroken that this year we did not get the chance to be excited every step we take to finally face the dome, to finally see the dome of Abu Abdullah after days of walking, of being tired but excited that I'm finally going to embrace that shrine, to be in the presence of greatness, to stand right in front of that dome in the chaos and the busyness of that place, to be one with all the lovers and followers of Hussein, and just to say Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. I wasn't given that opportunity, you were not given that opportunity. But they say, the reports, the Imams have told us that even if you are not given that opportunity to visit the Imam in person, if you sit down with yourself and you remember the Imam, you remember your love for him, you remember his tragedy, and from the depths of your heart, you say, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah, then you will reach. So here tonight, we gather as heartbroken followers and lovers of Hussein, as people who could not make it this year. It's tough when you visit Imam al-Hussein every year and one year you don't get the chance. It's very tough. So here we sit down and we remember Hussein and everything he has given us from love. So let's, all of us, from the bottom of our hearts, express our love for this man, express our salam and gratitude for this man. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتك جميعا. السلام على الحسين. Let me hear your voices. وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.